This piece of paper has the title of a book that you will not hear about on television, and you will probably not read about if you go to college. It is, however, one of the most important studies of race ever done in America. Basically, it's about the Black family, and it's called The Black Family in Slavery and Freedom, 1750 to 1925. Why should you care? You should care because there's an ongoing discussion in this country as to what accounts for certain situations, such as the problems that the Black family has in America. And this goes always back to the question of who's responsible for problems in the Black community. Are it Blacks? I suppose you could say conservatives take that point of view. Or is it society? And are there still lingering effects of slavery that are influencing behavior of Blacks? So in 1965, a report by Daniel Patrick Moynihan, known as the Moynihan Report, examined the link between Black poverty and family structure. It emphasized that the destruction of the Black nuclear family was leading to all sorts of endless problems, including economic and political equality. And it said, at that time, this fella, Daniel Patrick Moynihan, who's an advisor to President Johnson, said that out of wedlock birth was at the phenomenal rate of 25% among Blacks. 68% of Black children were born outside of marriage. And in 2011, 83% of Black babies were born to unmarried mothers. Now, this was kind of strange because a number of good things were happening with Blacks in terms of education, in terms of completing high school, going to college, owning a house, savings, and on and on. So a lot of people were kind of surprised. But he looked at this pattern, and his goal was to help people. That is, he was trying to say to people, things are bad. 25% of the babies born to Black mothers are born out of wedlock, and this will lead to disasters later on in life. And we, the government, the people in the United States, should do something to help Blacks. However, he was lambasted by, just about everyone in sight, who said this was an attack on Black people, and you should shut up, Daniel Patrick Moynihan. Now, their book came out later on in 1976, and it was called The Black Family in Slavery and Freedom, 1750 to 1925. Were the Black family split and demoralized by slavery? And this man said no, and he offered a very thick book, which it was basically a book that contained a very thick study that was done, maybe the most intensive ever, on Black families at an early point before the modern era. So he's saying, look, whatever has happened as a result of something else. What else? We don't know. Some people would say government policies. Other people would say no, the racism of white people. But he was saying something else entirely different. And he had an awful lot of facts and information. What he was saying was, look, if you go through the records, never mind what you think, never mind what I think, let's go through the records. Let's look at the evidence. Let's look at numbers. Let's do real academic research. And that's what he did. And he found that, contrary to what a lot of people thought, Black families were remarkably whole right after slavery and going up until 1925, that's when he stopped his research. It appears that whatever happened to the black family happened after 1925. What caused this? This is crazy. We made such an effort in terms of money and changing our attitudes in every which way to help. Could this be a situation where, well, we're like the doctors in the Middle Ages? You know, the more effort they made in bleeding the patient, the worse the patient got, of course. This is a goddamn important question. It goes to the main question, which is who's responsible for various problems? And if you hold on a second, hold on. Some idiot misplaced my pages. It's me. Before we go on, okay, let me start again here. Before we go on, I have a chart before me which shows non-marital birth rates in the United States, that is out of the wedlock birth rate. And at the bottom of the chart, we have Asians. Apparently they stick together like crazy. Above them, you have whites that, well, there you can see it sort of, but they are next most cohesive families. Then Latinos, again, we're going from most, fewer divorces, fewer out of wedlock births to the most out of wedlock births. Asians have the fewest out of wedlock births, then whites, Latinos, and Native Americans have very high rates of out of wedlock births, and blacks are at the tippy top. This is not a chart where you want to be at the tippy top. You want to be at the bottom. We have endless evidence of this situation. And the question is, who's responsible? Was it slavery that did this? Now, again, this guy who wrote this book, a man named Herman Gutman, was a very well-respected professor in New York at CUNY. And he did this study that he said destroyed the mythology of the broken back black family that is broken because of slavery. He argued, again, with an enormous amount of facts, hundreds of pages of evidence. He argued that after slavery, black men would wander the whole country for years looking for their wives, looking for their children. And yes, they knew who their wives were, and yes, they knew who their children were. They spent an enormous amount of time looking for their children. And when they found their wives, their children, they then put the family back together and gave everyone the same name and lived together forever and ever. This is much different than what we hear. People who say that the black culture is a response to the conditions the white master set up may very well be wrong here. If this book is correct, again, it was published in the 70s and much discussed then, although not discussed anymore. That is, the black people in this country are a lot more than people who are influenced by white people. If this is true, if the black family held together strong, and it sure seems to have held together strong, then what the hell did we do that produce different results nowadays? Hold on, I gotta sneeze. I hope you'll leave my sneeze out. Wait a minute. Now, there's a guy, a great great scholar, I think one of the greatest of our time, perhaps the greatest of our time, Thomas Sowell, who has written on these questions about the legacy of slavery. And he said the idea that slavery is responsible for what is happening now with the black family is false. He has some interesting facts. As late as 1950, a higher percentage of black women than white women were married. Let me say that again. As late as 1950, a higher percentage of black women than white women were married. More blacks were married than white people were married. What the hell happened? Is it the result of increased racism? Racism that even goes back to the era of slavery? What the hell happened? What policies, perhaps, did we pursue to make a big change? And some people would say, well, there are very specific policies that worked against the cohesion of the black family. Not everyone agrees with that, of course. There are other people, including a black sociologist, who argues that what happened was structural unemployment. That is, good jobs started disappearing after 1950. And a lot of blacks lost those good jobs, and that led into the problems that we see today in the inner city. So there are different points of view on this sort of thing. And a lot of people hate this book by Herbert Gutman. I mean, they hate it with a passion. And they say bad things, really bad things about it. Here we go. Thomas Sowell's quixotic quest to denigrate African American culture, a critique. This is by a black professor at Northwestern, James Stewart. And as you can tell from the title, he is not happy with the idea of Thomas Sowell, who in effect is holding government policies responsible for the bad state of the black family. The fact of the matter is, if you look through history, I think you find that without a family, things fall apart. The cutesy ideas of the 1960s have turned out to be false. It's family, family, family all the way down if you want to have a good life. What did slavery do to the black man? Well, according to some people, it demoralized and destroyed them. And this destruction somehow came down to modern times. Herbert Gutman, the man who wrote this book on the state of the black family from 1750 to 1915, said no. Blacks, he's praising blacks. He's saying, in spite of the enormous pressures the black people had because of slavery and the aftermath of slavery, they still stuck to their family. Black people did something heroic and wonderful. They stuck with their family. Now, what has happened since then? I don't know. Perhaps you don't know. But whatever it is, we have to grapple with this question. And no one is grappling with this, by the way. This stuff is political dynamite on college campuses. And I can't imagine anyone having the nerve to take this up as a question here. It turns out that blacks, after the Civil War, actually, as I mentioned, tried to get together, often did get together, and formed very cohesive families. And therefore, that this effort to formalize, to take measures to formalize family relationships by black people is something heroic, wonderful, and we should think about this a bit. By the way, this book was praised when it came out by a very famous black historians as well, including John Hope Franklin, who is one of the best, most important, perhaps the most important black historian of, black that wrote on these matters. It is, according to him, a devastating critique of the recklessness within which social sciences reach conclusions. You have white people reaching all sorts of conclusions about black people, and it's quite possible that they are totally wrong, and what they call scholarship is really just dogma written down on a journal or in a book. And it deals, this question is so important because right now we're having another discussion about race, and it's fundamentally about the same question: who's responsible? Now we're focused in particular on who's responsible for the killing of young black men. Are the police at fault? Are they not acting correctly? Are they acting in a racist way? But it's still this question of who is responsible. And this book should be part of any discussion. It won't be. You'll have to turn into really special podcasts like this one to learn about this. Enough serious stuff. We're going to have a little quiz for those people that think they're really smart. Okay. Which country in the world drinks the most alcohol? It's Belarus, which is one of those little countries near Russia. Okay, here comes one you probably think you know the answer, hot shot. Which country consumes the most caffeine in the world? Wrong. It's Sweden. I don't know why they would do that, but they consume an amazing amount of caffeine in coffee per person per day. It would be the equivalent of drinking 5 Red Bulls, which if you did, you could get home before your car. Where is the world's most dangerous city to live in? A little place you never heard of, San Pedro, Honduras. 3 murders a day. I think we might give them some competition if we looked at Chicago, but that's pretty high. What is the most expensive city to live in? Singapore. Singapore. A Toyota Prius costs $150,000 there. So if you're going to buy a Toyota Prius, don't buy it in Singapore. Here's one. Which city has the highest average IQ? And it's Hong Kong. It's Hong Kong. 107 points per person. That may be why they're fighting so hard for their liberty and their democracy. Which country has the shortest life expectancy? Come on, take a chance, guess. You don't have to guess in front of your spouse. You can just think your guess. It's Sierra Leone. They live 47 years. The average life expectancy in most countries in the West is about 77 years. So if you want to live a long time, don't move to Sierra Leone. Which country has the longest life expectancy? I don't know if I count this as a real country, but it's Monaco. Here's one you'll be sure to know. What country consumes the most food per capita? It's the United States. And the oldest city in the world? That's right, it's Damascus. What is the youngest country in the world? South Sudan, that is currently coming apart. Okay, enough taxing our wisdom. Let's go on and contemplate things. A lot of people are laying in bed at night contemplating. Contemplate this. Why did kamikaze pilots wear helmets? Okay. All right. Here's a quote from one of my neighbors. My opinions have changed, but not the fact that I'm right. There you go. And here's a remark from an old-fashioned fellow. As a child, my family's menu consisted of 2 choices, take it or leave it. And here's my man, Casey Stengel. All right, everyone, line up alphabetically according to your height. There, you see it stopped me. All right, maybe we can erase that. But I've got another good joke here. If you live to be 100, you've got it made. Very few people die past that age. Okay? You're laying in bed for longer. Here's something to ponder. You might want to ponder this later. If a poison passes its expiration date, is it more poisonous or is it no longer poison? Here's another one, especially good if you're twins. Do twins ever realize that at least one of them was unplanned? And which one? Here's another one. Who knew what time it was when the first clock was made? That's a tough one. It might take someone really smart to answer that. That's all I have for today. I want to thank my friend Ming for being there when it counted. And I certainly hope that he and his family are among the first to get the vaccine.